Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Hi Podcast. I'm Dad. I'm your boy, Joey 2 Bananas, and over here is...
El francioso,
God,
más pibioso, el tigoroso, el Gururo Valley.
Why?
Also known as Frank the Tank.
Was that actually even anything in Spanish?
I don't know. I don't think so.
You know what? Then I'm Jose dos Plátanos.
Ooh.
Ay, ay, ay. We're just two friends that are both dads, and we like telling stories, kind of quizzing each other on what it is to be a dad and how our dads affected us in life in general, and speaking about it.
Yeah, definitely learning along the way too.
Learning along the way. Doom, doom, doom. The more you know. With the little like rainbow and the shooting star. And if you've listened to us this far, I hope you're picking up a little something. I hope we're bringing some levity to your life. I hope we're bringing some insight. Or I hope you can at least laugh and be like, these two guys are dumbasses. But
yeah, we kind of are. A little bit.
A little bit.
I mean, you're the smart guy.
He's a smart guy. What was that? Tia and Tamara's brother, right?
Yeah. Mr. Two Bananas over here is definitely the smart guy.
It's because I got more bananas than the average bear.
And I'm aspiring to be the resident himbo. Just not there yet. I'm still pretty fat.
Would you like to define what a himbo is?
I actually don't know. Buff stupid guy Kronk from Emperor's New Groove.
How did you miss the only explanation of what a himbo is that's perfect?
What?
Johnny Bravo.
Is Johnny Bravo a himbo?
Johnny Bravo's a himbo. He's buff. He's supposed to be good looking. Super into his own looks.
Hello, 911 emergency. There's a handsome guy in my house. Oh, wait a second. Cancel that. It's only me.
But he's dumb as shit, and nobody likes him. Hey, mama, look at my muscles. Rips off his shirt.
I like being liked, though.
Okay.
Yeah. I enjoy being liked. But I guess that kind of brings us to today's topic, right? The himbo
Actually,
stuff.
yeah, I was about to say that because, like, Johnny Bravo, if you take away the fact that he was a deconstruction, right, that cartoon. So if anybody doesn't know, Johnny Bravo was a cartoon for Cartoon Network of a blonde-haired, like, buff dude. Like, he had Elvis-style hair, if I remember correctly. He was like a 2-foot tall. Yeah, he'd be like, hey, mama.
Hey,
like,
pretty mama. How you doing out there? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then he was all over the ladies.
And he was like this deconstruction of, like, I almost want to say, was he based on John Travolta?
Maybe a little bit.
That I'm thinking about it. He reminds me of like John Travolta from Grease.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. You know, John Travolta from Grease was pretty manly in a different way. Yeah.
You know, I totally sidebar, but I was watching something the other day where they were like, you ever notice how everybody in Grease is supposed to be a high schooler, but they definitely don't look like high schoolers?
Yeah, 100%.
And they're like, egregiously? It's like
Egregious.
obvious. Egregiously obvious.
Why am I now giving you vocab words?
Seriously.
That's fucked up. I'm supposed to be the himbo.
But I was watching this thing where they were like, the director finally came out and said that like they purposely did that because they were like, it'd be weird to hire teen actors to portray a storyline that was kind of adult.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
Yeah. So,
I mean, like,
that's why they all look like they're 30-year-olds in high school. They were like, as long as they all look like they're the same age.
Yeah. I mean, in high school, there's plenty of kids that look like in their 20s.
But, you know, those guys ended up being the more masculine and the more hyper-masculine dudes.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But then 20 years later, they're looking like those out of shape dads on like sitcoms that are like, back in my day, I played a lot of football, and they're patting their beer belly, you know?
Hey, I feel personally attacked right now.
I was actually thinking of a certain person from high school, not you.
I fall in that category, you motherfucker.
Emotional damage.
Back in my day.
You do not fall into that like old school masculine stereotype of like living back on your high school football, like
the Al Bundy shit.
Yeah, like
Horse in the Ted Bundy.
he tells that one story.
About the touchdown pass.
You don't fall into that stereotype.
Because
Like-
I try really hard not to.
Like, we both know a dude from high school that, like, I feel like I actually knew him from middle school, and he was, like, in the 400 club back in middle school.
Oh, Jesus.
You know who I'm talking about. We talked about him recently, and you were like, yeah, he's bald.
Oh, no. He balded
Yeah.
just after we graduated high school.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Dude was, like, super ripped and, like, hyper masculine. Like, the joke was that he was he was doing steroids back then because he was, like, so big for, like, a middle schooler and high schooler. And I think last time he told me that, like, he ended up balding, and now he's just kind of like a regular dude.
Chilling out. Yeah, that guy actually, I remember when I joined the football team, I was warned ahead of time by his lead coach. He was like, hey, listen, you got to watch out for this guy. He will knock you on your ass. This was my first day of football tryouts.
Like, straight up warned you like that?
Yeah. His position coach was like, listen, watch out for this guy. He will knock you on your ass. We did this drill where you had to square up with somebody and basically run into each other and try to knock each other on your ass.
The classic drill they show in every football movie ever.
Yeah, that shit was real.
Yeah.
So
Where you just, like, slam into the other guy and see who pushes each other the farthest.
right, yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
granted, I was bigger than this guy.
Yeah, because he was a short dude, wasn't
He
he?
was a shorter dude.
Yeah.
I did not know this at the time until I joined the weightlifting team with said guy. I did not know he was benching 415 pounds.
And he was doing that from middle school, bro.
Consistently. But anyway, so I'm like, oh no, I got this. The first time I ever flew through the air.
Bro, did R. Kelly play while you were falling? Like, you just get knocked off your ass. You're like, I believe I can fly. Oh!
That shit happened in slow motion. As soon as he hit me, first of all of my pain receptors just ended right there. Like, I just noodled through the air. And this guy...
All your nerves are like, we quit.
Yeah, exactly.
Done.
Like, if we actually experience this pain, he's gonna go through shock. Let's just turn off. But yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, he flew me through the air first day of football practice, right?
Sheesh.
We played football all through high school together. We did weightlifting together too, which is in the off season. And so me and him were on the weightlifting team, and this guy was Beef O'Brady's. Yeah.
I've never heard somebody say Beef O'Brady's.
He was like Win Dixie. He was the beef people.
Dude, he was so traditionally masculine that not only was he like, he had like the sharpest haircut and like the biggest like bench and like muscled out the ass. He had a jawline that could chisel marble.
Yeah. And you know what else is weird too? I remember in the last episode I was telling you how long I worked at Papa John's. Him and his whole squad were part of the Papa John's crew. Our general manager
Really?
was his cousin. And I would see them all the time.
That's just because everybody's related out here.
Well, yeah, that too. Well, at least at the time. We got a lot of transplants now. But anyway. And everybody in their crew was in the same boat. Really beefy, real masculine, real like men's men, right?
Yeah.
And all of them were in like that same kind of culture where if you weren't lifting heavy, if you weren't strong, if you weren't the top dog when it came to pulling women,
Yep.
right? That was a big part.
You had to be the Don Juan.
Yeah, you had to be a Don Juan, but you also had to lift the heaviest, squat a lot, and you had to be able to party with everybody every weekend.
Because he was part of the popular crowd. Yeah.
And like drink under everybody else under the table. You had to do that. That was the thing. Our general manager would come in and he would say, listen, guys, I need to take the weekend off because I have to party with my family members.
Yeah.
Or else I'm not seen as one of the guys.
You're not one of the men.
Bro.
Not one of the guys.
Yeah. And it was like, you serious? You're like 30-something guy. What's up? Like, you're hanging out with somebody I go to high school with. And I know that motherfucker benches 415 pounds. Seen it with my own eyes.
See, that's that craziness. That's that, and I know we totally got off topic because I was originally like describing Johnny Bravo, but essentially this guy is like a human Johnny Bravo, right?
A Latino human Johnny Bravo. with less hair.
Except he probably did a lot better with the women than Johnny Bravo, because Johnny Bravo failed with every woman because it was a deconstruction of masculinity.
Well, he had an actually steady girlfriend.
No.
Yeah.
I always assumed he was just banging girls left and right.
No, he had a steady girlfriend. And she, I mean, don't get me wrong, she was fine.
I don't know who his girlfriend was.
Because she went to like some other school out in like Cambodia and shit. And she was like hella exotic and like this fucking like model. And it was just like, oh, because he came to the Papa John's that I worked at.
Oh,
and he was hanging out. And he's like, yo, what's up, Frankie the Tanky? Long time no see, baby. Yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, yo, what's great, bro? I see your hairline's gone, but you seem to be doing awesome. Oh, shit, is this your girl? Let me. And she had some really fancy, exotic name or something. I don't know. And
Bobette.
Yeah, and he's like, yeah, Bobette. He's like, yeah, this is my homegirl Bobette. We're engaged. We're doing great. Blah, 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 blah. And, you know, it really kind of framed it for me. Like,
yeah,
holy shit, this guy's kind of like in the same boat as me.
Yeah.
You know, like
somebody who was on a pedestal for us when we were like,
yeah,
you the man.
Yeah, you flung me through the air. I was 5 seconds flying through the air.
You saw Jesus.
I heard the R. Kelly soundtrack before R. Kelly wasn't cool anymore. Because you smacked me so hard. You, like, I was always 100 pounds heavier than you, and you were always lifting like 200 pounds more than I could. But we've got kind of similar things going on here. You know, like he worked a regular job. It's not like he was doing fantastic. You know, this is like after we finished high school, a little bit into college.
Yeah.
You know, he's studying whatever he was studying. He's got his hottie girlfriend, you know. And at the time, I had my hottie girlfriend too. I was studying. I was working at Papa John's to make ends meet.
You were essentially on similar levels.
We were the same. But this guy, I always felt like was so much more elevated than me because of how manly he was and how manly all the guys in his group were.
And that's the whole trick of the thing, right? That's kind of what we were going into in that. And that's, I think, why Johnny Bravo was a thing, why they did that whole disassembling of the whole idea of masculinity, because it's like we're all told that that's the guy. That's the guy who backs the women. That's the guy who does all the bench pressing. That's the guy who's going to go far in life. That's the man who's going to get any job he wants because he could bench 450. You know, like we're told that masculinity is all that matters. Everything else follows, right? When in reality, come to find out, especially nowadays, maybe this worked back in the day when like there was like a 70% chance you'd end up in whatever the next major war is. But nowadays, the nerds were the ones who ended up ruling the world for a while, right? Look at the richest men in the world. They're all nerds. Like that whole masculinity, machismo, like I'm the man, I'm the Gaston of the village, right? I don't count for shit outside of high school, outside of college, outside of that whole when testosterone is surging through you and you're trying to be, oh, I'm better than that guy, I'm bigger, look at how big my bicep is. You could wrap a tape measure around it, right? Outside of that, it don't matter because I wasn't a big dude. I wasn't that. I got a nice house. I got a nice wife. I got 2 daughters, like got a good job. I got enough free time to sit here and record a podcast with you, right? Like
it's 1:30 a.m. You really think you got that much free time?
Yo, don't show them the inside baseball of it all. But like I'm saying, like
Mr. Awesome Dad over here has to put the kids to bed before we start recording.
Like you didn't put your kids to bed.
No, I didn't. It takes me a long time to get here.
But what I was saying is like all that whole masculinity thing, because I didn't live up to that masculine idea back in high school. It didn't stop us from getting where we ended up. And just like you said, with homeboy from school, Mr. 450 over there, him being the peak of masculinity didn't change up where he ended up and where you ended up. And actually, I was on the wrestling team. You remember this? And I was one of the worst wrestlers on the team.
Allegedly.
Dude, they called me Fish because I flopped.
No, man. But you had a lot of like really good wrestlers on your team.
Yeah.
You guys did really well.
And so that was the whole thing, right? Like I joined the wrestling team because I needed to be manly to live up to my father's expectations, right? Going back to what we were talking about last time. So I joined the wrestling team because that's going back to ancient Greece, right?
Yeah.
The only difference between ancient Greece is now is that we're not oiled up and naked.
I mean, yeah. That's a big part.
But so like that was the whole thing. I joined it for that, and it was hard, man. And the guys on the team were ridiculously strong. We had some of the best wrestlers in our area.
Yeah.
And one of the dudes, I'm gonna call him Mr. Naked. And just saying Mr. Naked, you know exactly who I'm talking about.
Exactly. It's like the flesh, super strong, and super naked.
He was the best wrestler on the team by far, and he was essentially like, I think if you take Mr. 450 that laid you flat and the flesh over here, Mr. Naked, I don't know who'd be the manliest man out of the two of them, and they both went to the same high school, right?
Well, I can say from kind of getting to know Mr. 450 and still the naked man, Mr. Flesh, being kind of a mystery to me because I didn't know him that well, I would put the Flesh over Mr. 450 in terms of masculinity. And that's only because I got to know him a little bit better, Mr. 450. After high school finished, after we stopped, right? After we kind of got out of that phase,
yeah, I
got to understand him a little better as a person. And he kind of dropped in the totem pole of masculinity because the Flesh is still like...
This is good. This is good. I want to go off of this.
Yeah.
Because, all right, so to go back to this guy was manliest man, the best wrestler on our team, hands down, could do anything, was dating the hottest girl in the school, one of the hottest girls in the school, and was rumored to have dated her twin sister at one point.
He banged them both.
That was the rumor. But he also was one of those dudes who like didn't give a shit about his masculinity. Like he would do some highly suspect shit just to get a laugh out of people.
Yeah.
And you'd be like, oh man, he's supposed to be super manly, but like he's running around naked, like slapping other guys' titties. Like, what's going on?
He wags his penis at all the guys in the wrestling team.
Like he cornered your cousin who was on the wrestling team one time. Should I tell this story?
Why not?
So he would come in and work out naked. And the coaches never said anything because he was so great at what he did. So he would come in and work out naked, and your cousin used to talk a lot of shit. Like, if I talked a lot of shit, your cousin talked a lot of shit.
My cousin fell into the same category that you did.
Skinny guys who talked a lot of shit.
Skinny guy, small guy, love talking a lot of shit.
And so he was talking a lot of shit that day. And so he came in, and he grabbed his jump rope that he would always grab, which was like this thick black rubber jump rope. When I was like probably about, I don't know, $50 or $silver in diameter.
Jesus.
And it was just a thick black rubber rope. And he grabbed that.
As thick as a Cheesecake Factory now.
Thicker. Thicker.
And he grabbed it and did
We're
what?
talking about a Miller's Ale House napkin.
He grabbed it and what did he do?
So he grabbed it, still naked, holding his dick in his left hand, and like just fondling it, walked up and cornered your cousin in a corner of the wrestling room while swinging that jump rope like a whip.
Oh no.
He was like, I heard you were talking shit.
No.
Your cousin's just there like, no. And then he just walked away. He's like, I'll just mess with you. Walked away.
No.
Like, what the fuck did I just watch? Jeez. So this guy was super masculine and like, but would like buck your traditional ideas of masculinity. I was always like, this guy's weird. Like, I don't know. He's like the man's man, but he's also weird. So that I kept him out of the thing. I thought he was like, ain't nobody more manly than him in school, right? Until one of our last wrestling matches where I lost. And I went all 3 rounds, 3 minutes per round in that match. And I lost because I got pinned, or not pinned, but the guy got back points on me at the end, meaning he held me almost in a pin. And the coach was bitching me out, yelling at me, like, what the fuck, you could have had that, blah, 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 blah. And he comes up to me, he puts his arm around my shoulder. He was like, fuck him. Fuck the coach. Don't listen to him. He's like, did you do your best? I was like, yo, I tried. I couldn't get him where I needed to. He's like, that's all that fucking matters. He was like, you're tough for what you did. Fuck what the coach says. I don't care if you didn't win or not. You did what needed to be done, and you should feel proud of yourself.
Damn.
That was one of the first like actual conversations I had with that man. I was just like,
what?
Yo, you're not the dude I thought you were.
Damn.
Because if you were like that super machismo masculine man that everybody says,
he would have been right there.
You would have been like, yo, you should have won. Like, you know, like ragging on me. But he was like, fuck it, what everybody says. If you're happy with what did you do what you could have done? Yeah, that's all that matters. Like, he came out with that almost like modern masculine man thing of like, all that matters is that you did your best. And like, that hit me, bro.
That's some cool shit. And you know, that coach you guys had for wrestling, Mr. No Neck, was like, well, he wasn't just a dick, but he was like the pinnacle of masculinity.
Oh, he was the pinnacle of old school masculinity.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how real this was, but I remember hearing like rumors that he was like old school Army Ranger kind of shit.
Yeah. We all heard the rumors, even on the football side. Like, we had the only intersection that the football team and the weightlifting team had with the wrestling team was that we ended up wearing your leotards.
And we never washed our leotards either.
I know, you nasty motherfuckers. So we didn't know much, but we knew that your coach was not the guy to be messed with. No, and we knew that the Flesh was top dog.
I love that we're calling it the Flesh.
He's super strong and super naked.
Yeah, dude, that coach was a dick. So I actually was on the wrestling team my sophomore year and my senior year. I quit my sophomore year because I don't know if you remember, but I was having heart issues.
Yeah, I do remember that. And
couldn't figure out what it was. Like, my chest would hurt all the time. And I ended up having to quit. I was like, hey, I have to go get a lot of tests done and stuff like that. And like my general practitioner doesn't think I should actually wrestle right now because they don't know what's wrong with me. Yeah, turns out I ended up having I can't remember what it's called now, but there was a small tear in the lining of my the wall, congenital. It was just born that way, and that's why it caused issues.
Interesting.
I ended up, like, anytime I had to get surgery or anything, I had to take medication to make sure like bacteria didn't get in my heart. But it was that plus my heart, the muscle lining was catching on my lungs, so every time I breathed heavy, it hurt. So that's what all that was. But I remember telling him, hey, I got to go get tested, this and that, or whatever. And it took me years to figure out what he said. But he was like, oh, so you got to see a doctor? I was like, yeah, I got to see a doctor. They said I shouldn't do this. Oh, I think I told you this story.
Yeah, I remember this.
And he was like, oh, okay. He was like, make sure you go check with a gynecologist. And I was a sophomore. I didn't know what a gynecologist was. I was like, oh, yeah, well, we're going to see the doctor, so I'll look at that. He's like, yeah, just make sure you go see your gynecologist. I was like, okay.
That was the coach, right?
Yeah, that was the coach. And I was like, okay. And I saw the other coach like kind of look at him and then like, all right, well, let us know what happens. And that was it. I came back to the team 2 years later as a senior, but it took me literally like 7-8 years later. It randomly popped in my head. I was like, yo, I was literally telling this motherfucker that I might have a heart issue. And he's telling me, oh, well, you got a pussy. Go see a fucking gynecologist.
What an asshole.
And that's that old school traditional masculinity. Like,
yeah.
The fuck, man?
Holy
are you so
shit.
insecure in your manhood and that everybody you coach needs to be a man like you are that you're going to tell a kid who's telling you he has a heart issue because it was a legitimate heart issue that I got a pussy and I need to go see a gynecologist?
No way. Yeah.
Like, what the fuck?
Oh, man. And like, when you think about it, it's like you compare your coach, No Neck's masculinity to the Flesh's masculinity, where
exactly
he did do things that were uncomfortable to people. Right?
Yeah,
he walked around naked, he exercised naked, and it was a power play. He wanted to let people know, listen, I'm top dog. I can do this naked. And I don't know, you're the one that has issues with being,
I'm a never nude.
Yeah. And it must be something kind of like primalistic.
Oh my God, maybe that's why I'm a never nude.
Maybe it's the Flesh's fault. Maybe it was a power play by him. Listen, I could be in my most vulnerable state and still like not give a shit what you guys think about me because I'm that masculine.
Yeah.
Maybe it was something that he needed to do because he wanted to show himself as top dog. But at the end of the day, when it really counted, and he sat there and he said, listen, you did your best. You did good. Don't worry about what Coach No Neck says. Who, at the end of the day, really didn't give a shit, right? Because he's sitting there telling you, oh, go see a gynecologist anyway.
I could have dropped dead on a wrestling mat, right?
Yeah.
And then what's he going to fucking say?
Yeah. You would have been like, well, he did his best. Like, what the fuck? Oh, my God.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
So, and that's kind of why I was like, when you were like, oh, well, I know 450 better than I know the Flesh. And I was like, that's interesting because I only had like 3 major interactions with the Flesh besides being on the same team with him. And from that, I realized that even though he was like the top dog of masculinity, he was different. He wasn't that traditional form, because you have fucking Coach No Neck, who told me I had a pussy because I had a heart condition that I needed to get checked out. And then you have the top dog of the team who sat there and was like, yo, don't beat yourself up. You did what you could. Yeah. That's all that matters. Fuck what the coach says. Right? Yeah. And the second interaction I had with him was at the after season pool party where we all went to somebody's beach house or lake house, and they threw the wrestling match. They hijacked them to the school and threw them on the lake because wrestling mats apparently float. Huh. Yeah. Cool. And so we all went wrestling on the lake. And then like I was feeling really weird because like I felt like I was a loser. I was like everybody else was an actual wrestler. I was and so like I'm sitting out there on the mats just kind of by myself, and then he just comes out of nowhere and spears me. Straight up spears me and like pins me, and the water starts pooling in because it's on the lake, and I'm like sitting there drowning and he's pinning me, and he lets me up. He was like, what the fuck, man, have fun, have a good time. And like that was it. And then he went and did his own shit, hung out with his people. But like I don't know if he did that because he was like, hey, he looks kind of like on his own, not really hanging out with nobody, or maybe he just wanted to fucking spear somebody. But it sat with me. I was like, yo, you know, I was kind of feeling left out. Yeah. And homeboy came, speared me, pinned me, and told me to have fun, and then went off and did his own shit. Right? Like that was to me. That's masculinity in its purest form, not being afraid to just do some shit and doing what you need to do to make others feel comfortable as well. It's not toxic like No Neck, right? Yeah. Well, and it's not the toxic conception we had like when we were thinking about 450, or how you thought the Flesh was a certain way.
Because you really think, like, from the outside looking in, without enough context and without enough information, you think this guy has all the strength, he's got the confidence, and he's got the charisma, so he can do anything he wants. Yeah. Turns out 450 was a faithful dude. Yeah. You, me, the people around us thought that he was getting fucking ass left and right. Yeah. I know it. Turns out he's like, oh no, I've been with this girl for like the same as me and wifey. Oh shit. We were together. He's in the same boat. I don't know now, right?
Yeah, we're talking years ago.
This is years ago. But he was in the same boat. He's like, no, I love this girl. We've been together since high school. We're high school sweethearts. And, you know, this is the girl I want to marry. Like, really? That's awesome.
That's crazy, bro.
Yeah, and from his cousin, who I was working with at the time at PJ's, he was telling me, like, yeah, no, the wedding's going to happen. Obviously, it was in some exotic place. I don't remember, like Dubai or some shit. I was like, man, I wish him the best because that's awesome.
When you say exotic place, I wanted to be like Indianapolis.
Salt Lake City, Utah.
Just pick like the most ordinary place ever.
Tucson, Arizona. Either way. So, like, I had this image in my head of what he could do, right? Banging supermodels, you know, doing this, doing that. And really, he was in the same boat as me, marrying his dream girl from high school. You know who else falls into that category? Who just hit my mind?
Dime.
The guy. I don't want to say his name.
Did I even use that right? No.
I don't think so. So
my bad Spanish.
You remember our homeboy who was muscular, also on the football team, dreadlocks, handsome, smarter than both of us.
Oh, Mr. Breakdance.
Yeah, Mr. Breakdance. This guy had everything going for him too. Masculine up the yazoo. This is another guy who was throwing up almost 400 pounds on the bench.
Dude, he was probably one of the strongest people in school, but people underestimated him because he was quiet.
Yeah, he was a quiet guy because he was smart too. He was in the same classes as us.
You know what? I think he was a victim of expectations, though. Finish what you were saying, and then I got something to throw in on that, kind of referring back to what we were saying.
No, yeah, just speaking to the masculinity part, he was everything that us guys wanted to aspire to. He was throwing up all the weight. If I remember correctly, he was in the 800-pound club when we were doing weightlifting together, which is...
It was like him and like 3 or 4 other guys.
Yeah, it was like 900-pound, 800-pound, 700-pound. That was the determinations. And he was in the 800-pound club. And this guy was smaller than us. or smaller than me.
He was shorter,
he was shorter.
He was stocky.
Jacked. He was jacked. He was jacked.
He was cock diesel.
Yeah, he was cock diesel, handsome, right, and smart as hell. And
he was a Vin Diesel in like Fast 5 plus. Not early Vin Diesel.
Fairly. But the only thing that was going against him was that he would crumble in front of women.
But you know what? I think he was a victim of expectations because everybody expected him to be that super masculine dude, right?
Yeah.
They also thought he was the super masculine, super smart dude. I beat him in AP Bio.
Mm-hmm.
I got a 5, the top score, and he got like a 4. And he was calling everybody like, hey, blah, 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 talking about scores. He was like, yeah, I got a 4, blah, blah, blah. What you get? Oh, what you think of this question? This. I was like, I got a 5. Like, he stopped talking. He hung up. He was like, oh, I got to go. He hung up. And he was weird around me for a while. And I realized it wasn't because he was upset at me. It was because he didn't know how to deal with the expectation that he wasn't the top.
Yeah, his ego.
You know, like, because his masculinity was built around being the best.
Yeah.
And when he wasn't, it hit him.
He was an awesome linebacker.
And I kind of think, going to what we're saying, you know how everyone talks about toxic masculinity this, toxic masculinity this. I don't think toxic masculinity is a culture like people say it is. I think toxic masculinity is a set of expectations that we all hold in our head, even though nobody ever lives up to them.
Oh, yeah.
Right? It's almost like a subconscious thing that's been just rolling throughout all society, and nobody's actually saying, hey, you got to live up to this idea of what a man is. I mean, some dads might have an expectation, but those dads got that expectation from another expectation, and it's just this continued passed on set of expectations. And I think the toxic part is how we act when we don't feel we're living up to that expectation, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because what happens is, you know, we had mentioned the totem pole earlier with Mr. 450 and the Flesh.
Oh, yeah.
Where we were putting them up on the totem pole above us and whatever. And
in reality, that was us. Yeah.
It's in our head.
Yep.
That totem pole, and we keep, based off of that, those set of expectations, we keep throwing ourselves either further up the totem pole or lower on the totem pole.
Yeah.
Based on what's in our heads. And
it's not even just guys outside of our families. It's everybody, right? I will say, and going back to what we're saying, how I always thought I was more of the smart guy. I wasn't the strong guy. I thought I never measured up to my father masculinity wise, right? I always thought he was the barbarian. Hey, Joey, go piss outside, right? Like,
he still is a barbarian. You know, both of you are.
And so, like, I shaped myself trying to be as masculine as him for such a long time because I was comparing myself to him. But now looking back, like we said last episode, yeah, my dad had expectations for me, but I think he also at some point let them go and realized I was a certain kind of guy. I was the book guy, but I still held myself to those expectations that I thought he had of me. And that's the toxic masculinity. That's when I tried to be. That's when I got to college. I was like, well, my first girlfriend broke up with me. Now I'm going to be the guy who fucks every woman. And I'm going to be the guy who's just like picking fights with everybody and this and that. Because I was trying to live up to this idea that got twisted in my head, this expectation that nobody was actually really expecting me to live up to. And I think that's what toxic masculinity is.
It's kind of put it on yourself, right?
Yeah. I don't think it's the concept of being a man that's toxic, that masculinity. I think it's that expectation that we all put on ourselves, this set of expectations. Because there's nothing wrong with being a provider. There's nothing wrong with being the protector, the man who goes to war, the man who comes back, and the man who puts it all on the line for his family. There's something wrong with idealizing all of that and then blowing it up in your head to this unrealistic expectation. There's something wrong with saying like, man, Mr. Flesh is good at wrestling, or Mr. 450 is good at lifting, and then saying, well, that must mean he's slaying all the women. Yeah. And that must mean like his dick is the biggest and he's the baddest and he's riding around in a fucking Corvette, you know, like
you're putting this idea that they live such better lives than you because they can do one thing better than you.
And I think we do that with our own fathers.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I think that's the first coin in the toxic masculinity piggy bank is when we start comparing ourselves to our fathers.
Yeah, I'll definitely say that I come from the opposite side. my stepfather and my biological father, we've had this kind of relationship where I've always, since puberty, have been a little bit more traditionally masculine than they are. Like, your dad is tall. Your dad is fit. Your dad, he's a manly man. I can definitely say that. And if you're listening to this, Uncle Two Bananas, you know who you are. I love you to death. You're still a barbarian.
He's still gonna yoke you up.
He's still gonna egg white me up. But my biological dad is shorter than me. He's smaller than me. He's been smaller than me since I was 14 years old.
Really?
Yeah.
You know, I met your dad at your wedding, and he didn't leave an impression on me.
Yeah, because...
And I don't mean that in, like, an insulting way.
Yeah, no, I get it. But you were also, like, on antidepressants and piss drunk. And we were not 21 yet.
I only remember, like, 20% of your wedding, because you should not drink on antidepressants, people.
But he was also at my bachelor party. And you were there, too.
The only thing I remember from your bachelor party is having to pay for all of your family. I bought so many lap dances that day.
You know those guys, my two cousins that you bought lap dances for, are all like married, wifed up. One of them has 3 kids.
Bastards.
I know. The other one has 1. They're like happily married.
Yo, they owe me money.
They owe you money. I'll let them know.
My PS3 got delayed by a year because I dropped like $600 in lap dances for like your cousins and uncles.
I'll let them know. Hey, Joey Two Bananas says you owe PS3 buddy. Either way. So I feel like ever since I hit puberty, and like by the time I was 14, I was bigger than my biological dad. Right? My stepdad is a big dude. Strong dude. Well, he was. Not so much
I always thought he was a strong dude. Just from I've never actually seen him do a feat of strength, but I'm like, yeah, he can pick some shit up.
The guy has bent a piece of rebarb with his bare hands.
Rebar.
Is it rebarb?
Rebar.
I worked in concrete. I should know that. Anyway. Guy's bent a piece of rebar with his bare hands in the past. He was a football star.
No fucking way.
Dude, yes.
Yo.
He was strong. Not so much anymore. A little on the old side. But anyway, always been a big guy. But
dick. Just because you're old don't mean you're not strong.
Age comes for us all. Age will come for us all.
I'm immortal.
Get that shit out of your head right now, because it's going to come for us all. You got to enjoy the ride while it comes. Anyway, I kind of followed in my stepdad's footsteps. He did the football. He did all that stuff. I really went under his wing because I even played the same positions as him.
Really?
On the football team. Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, he showed me the ropes, and, I made him proud because we were doing a lot of the same stuff. But when it came down to it, our masculinities were a little different. But
he came from a culture that was a lot more masculine focused, too.
Yeah, you had to be strong. He was from the country of South Carolina. You had to be strong, and not only that, but you had to pull girls. He pulled girls a lot when he was young. My biological dad pulled a lot of girls, too. They just did.
I mean, the amount of kids he has proves that. And they're all named after him.
Yeah. All Frank-based names. It's fucked up.
Talk about an ego issue.
If I'm Franklin the Tanklin, I've got a younger brother whose legal name is Frank the Tank. Put that out there. Anyway, not the point I was trying to make. But we've always had this kind of idea of masculinity, and I've always kind of lived up to their idea of masculinity.
Yeah.
Right?
It's a set of expectations.
It's a set of expectations. And I never thought of it as toxic, really, at the time. Right? Because it didn't cause me stress. And it didn't cause me stress because I met it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was strong. I was sporty. I had girlfriends. It wasn't a problem. But looking back on it now, it's I can see that they were trying to live vicariously through me.
Yeah.
Right? Because that wasn't enough. I did what they did. Not so much, because they had a lot more girls than I did. I was kind of maintaining their idea of what masculinity was supposed to be.
Yeah.
You know? So I didn't have a problem with it, but it was that set of expectations. And if I think about it, if I didn't meet it the way they wanted me to, I might have actually really tried a lot harder to try to meet that. And you know, I'd like to get into a little bit of what's going on with number 1 right now, because this is like really relevant.
I think this topic may be a spillover topic, that we have a second conversation about it. And a second conversation we did have. Hello, everybody. This is Joey Tubanin is here, and this one was running a little long, and we still had a lot to go over, so we decided to split it into 2 episodes. So thank you for listening to episode 7, part 1, and I'll see you on the flip side for part 2. Thank you for listening. This has been Hi Podcast. I'm Dad.